We're going to be looking at making basic tonal adjustments with Lab 6 and continuing on to looking at hue, saturation, lightness and creating a split tone. We've already explored making a black and white image a few weeks ago, so this will be a continuation building on partially the black and white image. So the goal by the end of Lab 6 is that you students choose 5 images that need tone and color adjustments. We're going to be studying more about color throughout the semester. I understand that your assignments are primarily being accomplished through black and white because color is a big conversation, and we'll be having that conversation in one of our lectures very soon. But basically, you're going to choose 3 images that need tonal and color adjustments, and you're going to be handing in 5 images in the screenshots of their before and after mode for this assignment. And you'll be naming them according to the instructions on the handout. So let's take a look at the handout. So the lab is global tonal adjustments, walking you through the basic panel. Now remember that Lightroom is non-destructive, so you actually don't have to go in order. These are simply a group of recommendations on how to start, walking you through the basic panel to make tonal adjustments. The presence panel works with color, so the best images for this assignment really are color images, or for this lab are color images. If you don't have any color images, you can use the color images that I've given you in the samples folder. So again, the lab will be to correct 5 photographs that need correction. Also play with the presence, both the basic and the presence panels. And then you'll be turning in 5 screen captures in a folder with lab 6 _ your name, and then the 5 before and after screen grabs that should look like this. Okay? So let's take a look at the color and tone panel. I'm going to go ahead and launch my catalog file in Lightroom. And we're going to be working in the develop module. Last week we worked in the library module where we start in Lightroom. You always start here after you import and enter your keywords and rename your files if necessary, rate and choose your images, and get rid of the images that you definitely don't want to keep so that you don't have to migrate them around from technology to technology. So here I have a mixture of film scans and of digital images. So I'm going to choose maybe a collection to work with, maybe all my horizontal images or my 5-star images, except those aren't really that interesting. So maybe I'll work with the landscape format images. So when I go to the develop module, anything that's in my film strip or all of my collections are going to carry forward. Notice that only the collections show up or whatever was loaded into your film strip. So you want to make a collection of the images to work with first, or select them in the film strip first. Here we are in the develop module. On the top is our histogram. The histogram shows us a map of pixel values in the image from pure black all the way over to pure white and everything in between. So we have blacks. The shadow areas are black with detail. The exposure area or the mid-tone area. The highlights or the white with details. And then the white areas or the very bright highlights. And you can actually use the basic panel to manipulate the histogram, or you can click on the histogram itself and watch what happens down in the basic panel. For example, the black area. Okay? So let's say we just get an image and its histogram looks like this. When you have a histogram where most of the information is in the middle of the image, that indicates what we call a low contrast image, or image that doesn't have a lot of information, pixel information in the blacks, or pixel information in the brightest whites. And we see that's true here of this image. Okay? I'm going to ask you not to click, please. Okay? Hands up. Look up here. So over here on the left, we want to add more detail to the black. You might think it looks cool on screen, but when you go to print it, it's not going to really have a good contrast range. Contrast, when we move contrast up and down, see how it pulls from the middle towards the black and white sides of the histogram, increasing the print's contrast. That means ensuring that it has strong blacks and strong whites. One way to avoid going too far is to turn on these warning buttons here, because if we go too far with the shadows, you can see that these areas are turning blue. And that just means that if you see an outline area in blue, that this is going to be pure black with no detail. It doesn't necessarily mean bad, bad, bad. This is bad. It just means that it's going to be pure black with no detail. So you can turn this warning dialog box on, or this warning shadow clipping warning on, to see that. Likewise with the whites, if we go too far with our whites, the pure white areas or the 100% areas are going to turn pure white. So generally we try to stay away from a lot of this. If you have a lot of pure black or a lot of pure white, chances are that your in-camera exposure might have been over or under. It's okay to have a little bit though, because bright highlights and deep shadows make for a nice print. I'm going to hit the Option key and choose Reset to go back to normal, my normal exposure. So I can move the histogram itself, or I can move the sliders to try and spread this panel out. I can also choose the auto and see what happens in white balance auto, or white balance is there. And you can see that it did spread my histogram out, but it darkened the midtones maybe a little too much. So I'm going to move the midtones or my exposure back over. And personally, I like clicking and dragging right on the histogram because it allows me to be familiar with the histogram and to spread it out. So I want to see detail here, and I want to see detail touching the edge here in order to get a nice high contrast print. Let's look at this one. Images taken on a sunny day usually already naturally have good highlights and good shadow information. Here, in this case, I might just brighten my blacks a little bit and make sure that my highlight values are nice and bright as well, so that when I go to print it, I get a nice bright highlights and nice deep blacks. On screen, things will look like they have more contrast than they actually do in print. And you can roll over here and just see what's going on. And I might have overcorrected my highlights a little bit, so you can see I can take my white tab and just spread it to the left a little bit until that warning goes away. This is the tonal panel. We're going to be working with the temperature panel a little later in the semester. Today we're going to be working with the tone area of the panel. The presence adjustment, if I zoom in here, works primarily with color images. Clarity actually increases if you look at the before and after. Contrast values just in my midtones. So it targets the midtones and it increases contrast. This generally makes the image look sharper. You can make it look strange. You have to be careful with clarity, vibrance, and saturation. So you want to be at 100% like I am now. If I look in my navigator, I'm at 1:1 or 100%. When you move this area of the panel, anything in the presence portion of the basic panel, you want to look at it at 100%. So that's a little too much. I might just want to add a little bit like that. Vibrance is overall saturation of the image except for the flesh tones. So vibrance is designed for portraits to increase the intensity of the color in the image, mostly in the blues and in the greens, but trying not to affect so much the skin tones. It's designed for portraits. So you can see if I turn down the vibrance, I take away the blue and the greens in the picture and leave behind what might be flesh tones of red and orange. If I increase, you see that it increases the intensity of the picture. You need to be careful with vibrance and saturation not to go too far to the right, because then what you're doing is you're creating color that's out of gamut or not printable. So generally just a little, and generally you choose between vibrance or saturation. So vibrance is mostly for portraits, saturation is mostly for landscapes because it affects all of the colors. So it can take away or decrease the purity of color or increase the purity of color. Those are the basics of the tonal adjustments and the presence adjustments here in the basic panel. So you want to choose 5 images that are in color, make adjustments to the histogram, look at it in the before and after view. I can go ahead and hide this left-hand panel. Show me the adjustments that you made in the before and after view here. I'm going to take a screen grab, Command-Shift-4, of 5 different images. So now I have to go and work with 4 more. And then I'm going to name these my last name, Color Tone 1. I'm going to make a folder with my name on it, Lab 6 my name. Name my files, put them in the folder, then take that folder and turn it into the Dropbox to turn in this assignment today. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you. So remember, we're starting with Lab 6.